Hey, this is Chad with Drawn and Cornered. It is Monday, August 9th, and these are the stories you need to know to kind of keep up for the rest of the week. These all happened from Friday over the weekend, just to give you kind of a handle on what happened and get your week started properly. The first one is one of my favorites. Joe Biden on Friday announced that by 2030, 50% of the vehicles sold in America need to be zero emissions. Obviously, this is a big push towards the electric category. And it does a couple of things for Joe Biden. First, it's a massive uphill climb. So it's a huge aspirational goal to hit. It's one of those we'll be on the moon type of thing. I just don't know how it works. But this is the goal here, is this makes his infrastructure bill that much more important. Now, we're having a lot of difficulty getting this passed because there's a lot of Democrats that don't want to do it. Obviously, a ton of Republicans that don't want to do it. They're tying it in with things that probably stand outside of what infrastructure actually should be qualified as. To make this happen. But this makes that infrastructure bill far more important because there's a ton of infrastructure that needs to happen before you can make electric vehicles palatable to the American consumer across the country, from more charging stations to just generally the capabilities of an electric vehicle as far as timelines and distances that they can travel that you don't run into with gasoline powered vehicles. All of that would have to change if you're going to be able to sell 50% of them by 2030. The other thing that's a massive problem here is that these automakers can't do this without enormous subsidies for the consumer. One, because the electric vehicles cost a lot more to produce than gas-powered vehicles, and because consumers are just, frankly, not that into them right now. Over the past few years, we've topped out at about 2% of vehicles worldwide are electric vehicles. It's just not something the American consumers want. So you're going to try and raise that by essentially 48% in less than a decade. There's going to be a lot of incentives that are going to be needed for the American people to do that. So we'll see how that goes and what that conversations are and how hard you have to push the infrastructure bill in order to be able to make that happen. The second story is one that I've hated from Jump Street. I just never like going over these things, but it's all the allegations that have come out against Cuomo. Now, the AG in the state came out with a report talking about something like 18 different instances and sexual assault with 18 different women, and the truth of the circumstances and how all of these have happened and what's going to happen with Cuomo after this point. The state is looking at impeachment issues with them and they're asking him to step down. At this point, he says he's not going to, even though I don't know how you escape these allegations. Now, it's possible that he is useful enough in his role that everybody starts coming out and sort of defending him. I don't see that happening right now because some of these accusations are pretty gross, and they're not old. This is not 20 years ago. This is not 15 years ago even. This is within the past couple of years, and he's currently denying. This is not a situation where like, hey, I've learned, I've changed. These are things I used to do, and I don't do them anymore. It's like he still goes on. He's still denying that there's a problem. He says, I do this with everybody. This is going to be a major sticking point. He's essentially making it more of a story each time he fights against it, and that's a problem for him. So we'll see if he's able to escape the consistent calls. Now, the only thing that can save him here, which is a definite possibility, is him pushing this long enough till another story takes over. Right now, this is kind of front and center. We'll see if he's able to get out from underneath this. But we've had calls from Nancy Pelosi and Joe Biden that he's got to resign. He's got to get out of there. So impeachment, resignation, or being forgotten are really his only ways of going at this point. It'll be very interesting to see how this next week kind of unfolds. They're talking about the potential of a criminal case being brought by one of these women. That only adds fuel to that fire. So we'll see what happens next. The last thing I want to talk about is obviously the Delta variant is kind of going haywire across the country. Now, the level to which that's a problem is debatable. Obviously, there's a ton more cases. It's a lot more transmissible, but deaths are not necessarily on the rise. It's not becoming a major issue when it comes to the overall volume of impact that it's having, other than hospitalizations and people actually catching it, the caseload. But the problem is that it's thrown everything into hysterics, right? We've got lockdowns being talked about again. We've got masks being reinstituted. I know where I live in Durham, North Carolina, all of that stuff's back on. Everything that we had back in January, it's all happening all over again. There's going to be major resistance to this from especially the vaccinated population. And I think the calculus is that if they make this difficult enough, The vaccinated will put pressure on the unvaccinated to get vaccinated and sort of bring us out of this. But I don't know that that's what's going to happen. I think that there is definitely the potential for the vaccinated and the unvaccinated to join forces in us and them sort of situation and push back against the people that are making regulations and essentially say, leave us alone. Nowhere is that more evident than Obama's birthday party over this past week. He turned 60 years old. Happy birthday, Mr. President. But during the course of that celebration, which was supposed to be scaled down from the 600, 800 guest affair, we've got photos now of guests partying maskless, without social distancing guidelines, and having just a massive international, everybody coming in from around the world and around the country to this party with no real COVID guidelines being put in place. Now, if the president can do that and he doesn't seem to fear the Delta variant, then I don't understand how any of the rest of us all of a sudden should be considering this a major big deal. Obviously, I'm guessing everybody there is probably vaccinated. They're all well off. They're all wealthy. They're all smart. I'm sure they're all vaccinated. But if all of those people who are vaccinated don't think this is as big of a deal as Joe Biden and the CDC and a bunch of other governors and townships and villages and cities around the country, then seems like maybe we should take our cue from them. I'll be curious to see if Obama leads that charge against this or if people are resistant because Obama was resistant. And this idea that somehow he's in a different situation or like this is his 60th birthday party and it's important is different from me going to a grocery store or my kids being able to go to school. I think we're going to run into some issues there. And I think that's why you might see the catalyzation between vaccinated and unvaccinated both saying, hey, get off our backs, leave us alone, we got this, we'll handle it. If it's our problem at this point, if it's something that happens to us, we'll deal with it, but I'm not taking words from the top, words from the leadership who apparently are not willing to follow their own rules. And that is something that's interesting and exciting to me because I would like to see that moment where we realize leadership is not necessarily leading us. Thank you very much. This is Chad with Drawn and Cornered. We will be doing this daily, a little bit of rundown, give you some of the news, maybe some of our analysis on that news. You can take it for what it is. Obviously, I come from a right-leaning side, so it is what it is. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Give me comments, give me feedback, anything you want to say. I'm always up for discussion. I'm always up to find out where I'm wrong, get pushback against some of the ideas that I've had. Feel free to leave a comment, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. Otherwise, check in here tomorrow. We'll get you a little bit more. Thank you.